Christmas morning 1 year ago, I opened my final gift from my parents and siblings, a $25 gift card to a chain restaurant. I calculated that my entire Christmas haul from my family totaled $99 the gift card, a $12 candle from my sister Ashley, a $37 sweater from my brother Tyler, and a $25 picture frame from my parents David and Susan. Meanwhile, I had spent over $600 on thoughtful, personalized gifts for each of them. Something felt deeply wrong about this disparity, and I was about to discover just how calculated their cheapness really was. 6 months after that disappointing Christmas morning, I found myself house-sitting for my parents while they enjoyed a 2-week vacation in sunny Florida. They had asked me to water their plants, collect their mail, and generally keep an eye on their suburban home in Minneapolis. What started as a simple favor turned into the most eye-opening experience of my adult life. On the 3rd day of their absence, I decided to organize their cluttered home office. Mom had been complaining about the mess for months, and I thought surprising them with a clean workspace would be a nice gesture. As I sorted through stacks of papers, old magazines, and forgotten documents, my fingers stumbled across a manila folder labeled in my father's precise handwriting, Christmas 2023 expenses. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened the folder expecting to find routine holiday receipts, maybe some notes about decorations or dinner planning. Instead, I discovered a meticulous record that made my stomach drop to the floor. The first receipt showed Ashley's gifts a $700 designer handbag from Coach, a $300 spa package at the luxury resort downtown, a $200 jewelry set from Tiffany, and $150 leather boots from Nordstrom. The total for my 26-year-old sister was $1,350. Tyler's receipts were equally shocking. My 24-year-old brother had received an $800 gaming setup, complete with high-end graphics card, $400 worth of camping and hiking gear from REI, $200 in premium restaurant gift cards, and $150 in designer clothing from Banana Republic. His total reached $1,550. But the most painful discovery came next. My parents had purchased expensive gifts for each other, matching luxury watches worth over $1,000 each, plus smaller items that brought their mutual exchange to nearly $2,500. I sat in that office chair surrounded by evidence of a Christmas celebration that had cost my family over $4,700. My portion of that generous holiday spirit, the $99 I already knew about. My hands shook as I photographed each receipt with my phone. The evidence was undeniable, captured in black and white numbers that told a story of deliberate exclusion. This was not oversight or coincidence. This was calculated. I began to remember previous Christmas mornings through a new lens. The forced smiles when I opened obviously last-minute gifts. The way my siblings would exchange meaningful glances when I expressed gratitude for whatever small token they had thrown my way. The pattern had been there for years, but I had convinced myself I was imagining things. Growing up, I had always been the responsible one. I graduated high school with honors, put myself through college with minimal family support, and built a successful career in marketing. I lived modestly in a nice apartment across town, saved money diligently, and never asked my family for financial help. If anything, I was usually the one lending money to Tyler when he was between jobs, or helping Ashley with her student loan payments. So why was I being treated like the family afterthought? I closed the folder and placed it exactly where I had found it, but the damage was done. The knowledge burned in my chest like acid. As I continued organizing their office, I wondered how many other family decisions had been made without my input or consideration. That evening, I called my best friend Jessica from college. She lived in Portland now, but we had maintained our friendship over the years through regular phone calls and visits. "Jess, can I ask you something about your family's Christmas traditions?" "Sure, what's up?" "How much do your parents typically spend on each kid during the holidays?" She laughed. "Oh man, my mom goes completely overboard. She probably spends $400 or $500 on each of us, sometimes more. My dad always jokes that she's trying to buy our love, but honestly, it's pretty equal across all four of us kids. Why? I told her about the receipt folder, about the stark inequality, about the years of feeling like an outsider at my own family gatherings. Jessica listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. She'd always been a good listener. Bridget, that's seriously messed up. I mean, even if money was tight, you wouldn't exclude just one person like that. And it sounds like money definitely was not tight. That's what I keep thinking. If they were struggling financially, I would understand cutting back on everyone equally. But this feels personal. Have you ever done anything to upset them? Said something that might have caused this? I had been asking myself the same question all day. I honestly cannot think of anything. I mean, I'm sure I have not been a perfect daughter or sister, but nothing major. No big fights, no falling outs, no dramatic moments. Then this is about them, not about you, and if I were you, I would want to know why. After hanging up with Jessica, I made a decision. I was not going to confront my family immediately. I was going to investigate. If there was a reason for this treatment, I wanted to understand it completely before addressing it. And if there was no good reason, I wanted to gather enough evidence to make my case ironclad. The house felt different that night. What had been my childhood home, filled with warm memories of family dinners and movie nights, now felt like a crime scene. I wandered through the rooms looking for other clues, other signs of exclusion I might have missed. In the living room, I noticed the family photos on the mantel. Most of them featured my parents with Ashley and Tyler at various events and vacations. I appeared in some of the older pictures, but the recent ones seemed to focus on the others. When had I stopped being included in family photo opportunities? I thought about the last few family gatherings I had attended, birthday dinners where the conversation flowed around me without much effort to include my input, casual mentions of plans that had already been made without consulting me, small moments that I had dismissed as coincidence but were now taking on new meaning. As I settled into the guest bedroom that night, I realized that tomorrow I would begin looking at my family with completely different eyes. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had been systematically treating me as less valuable than my siblings. The question was why, and more importantly, what was I going to do about it? Over the next few months, I became a detective investigating my own family. I started paying closer attention to dynamics I had previously overlooked, and what I discovered made my chest tighten with each new revelation. At our annual family barbecue in July, I positioned myself as an observer rather than a participant. Tyler was grilling burgers on the back patio, while Ashley helped Mom arrange side dishes on the picnic table. Dad was setting up lawn chairs in the shade, and I was supposedly getting drinks from the kitchen. Instead, I lingered by the sliding glass door listening to their conversation. "So, are we doing the same thing this year for Christmas?" Ashley asked, lowering her voice slightly. "Same budget structure." Tyler responded, flipping a burger with theatrical flair. "I think it worked well last time." Mom nodded approvingly. "I think we should stick with what works. Some people just have different expectations, you know." My skin crawled. They were talking about me about Christmas gift planning in coded language designed to exclude me from the conversation. This was July. They were already coordinating their holiday strategy 5 months in advance, and I was clearly not part of the planning committee. I grabbed several sodas from the refrigerator and returned to the patio, acting as if I had heard nothing. The conversation smoothly shifted to Tyler's new job at the local bank and Ashley's upcoming vacation to California with her college friends. Throughout the barbecue, I noticed other small exclusions. When Dad mentioned a funny story about something that happened at the grocery store, Tyler and Ashley laughed knowingly as if they had already heard it. When Mom brought up plans for Dad's birthday next month, Ashley immediately suggested a restaurant I had never heard of, and Tyler agreed enthusiastically. They seemed to have inside information about family events that I was not privy to. 2 weeks later, I got my chance to dig deeper. Tyler needed a place to stay for the weekend while his apartment building underwent fumigation. He asked to crash at my place, and I agreed, seeing it as an opportunity for investigation. Saturday morning, Tyler left his laptop open on my kitchen table while he showered. I knew I was crossing a line, but I also knew I needed answers. I quickly opened his messages and searched for anything related to family or Christmas. What I found made my hands shake with rage. There was a group text conversation labeled Family Planning that included Mom, Dad, Ashley, and Tyler, but not me. The messages went back over 2 years, covering everything from birthday planning to holiday coordination to family investment decisions. I scrolled through dozens of conversations about Christmas gift strategies. Ashley had written, "We should keep Bridget's stuff minimal. She never appreciates what she gets anyway. Remember how she just said thank you last year without even opening the card? So ungrateful." Tyler had responded, "Right, plus she makes good money now she can buy her own nice things. We should focus on family members who actually need our support." Dad had added, "Agreed. Let's focus resources on family members who really need support. Bridget has always been independent to a fault. Mom's contribution was the most hurtful. Bridget always acts ungrateful. Smaller gifts will teach her some humility. She thinks she's better than us anyway." I quickly screenshot these messages, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. There were dozens more conversations like this, systematically planning events and expenditures, while characterizing me as ungrateful, snobbish, and undeserving of equal treatment. In one particularly painful exchange from 6 months ago, they discussed whether to include me in a family trip to Yellowstone National Park. "Mom, should we invite Bridget to Yellowstone?" "Ashley, do we have to? She'll probably complain about the accommodations or want to change the itinerary." "Tyler, she always acts like she knows better than everyone else. Plus it'll be more expensive with another person." "Dad, let's keep it small this year. We can always do a big family trip another time." They had taken that trip in May without mentioning it to me. I learned about it through Ashley's social media posts, which showed beautiful photos of geysers, wildlife, and family bonding moments. When I had casually asked Ashley about her vacation photos, she had dismissed them as just a quick weekend getaway, nothing special. I heard Tyler turning off the shower and quickly closed the laptop, returning to my spot on the couch with a magazine. When he emerged from the bathroom, I was the picture of casual innocence. "Thanks again for letting me crash here," he said, toweling his hair. "The fumigation should be done by Monday." "No problem at all," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside my chest. "Family helps family, right?" He smiled and nodded, completely unaware that I had just discovered years of systematic family conspiracy against me. That evening, after Tyler left for dinner with some friends, I sat alone in my apartment, processing what I had learned. This was not casual thoughtlessness or accidental exclusion. This was deliberate, coordinated, and sustained over years. My family had created a separate group dynamic that specifically excluded me, and they had built elaborate justifications for treating me as less deserving of their time, money, and consideration. The most painful part was their characterization of me as ungrateful and snobbish. I thought back over years of family interactions, trying to find moments where I had acted superior or demanding. I could not think of any. If anything, I had always been careful to express appreciation for everything they did, even when the gifts or gestures felt impersonal or minimal. I realized that my independence and financial stability, which I had worked hard to achieve, were being used against me. Because I did not need their help with rent or car payments like Tyler sometimes did, because I did not call them crying about relationship drama. Like Ashley often did, they had decided I did not deserve equal treatment. I was being punished for being responsible and self-sufficient. As I sat in my quiet apartment that night, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt and confusion were hardening into something else, determination. If my family wanted to play games, if they wanted to systematically exclude and demean me while acting loving to my face, then they were about to learn that I could play games too. Christmas was exactly 5 months away. That gave me plenty of time to plan my response. I opened my laptop and began researching the cost of various gifts, calculating exactly how much $99 could buy when distributed across 4 family members. If they thought I was ungrateful for their minimal efforts, they were about to discover what true minimalism looked like. But first, I needed to gather more evidence. I needed to understand the full scope of their exclusion strategy before I decided how to respond. Something told me that Christmas gifts were only the tip of the iceberg. Late August brought an unexpected opportunity to dig deeper into my family's financial maneuvering. My grandmother Martha, my father's 82-year-old mother, called to invite me for afternoon tea at her assisted living facility in Bloomington. Grandma Martha had always been my favorite family member, perhaps because she treated all her grandchildren equally and never played favorites. I drove the 45 minutes to Sunset Manor on a warm Saturday afternoon, bringing her favorite lemon cookies from the French bakery downtown. Martha's apartment was cozy and bright, decorated with family photos spanning decades, and filled with the scent of her signature lavender sachets. We settled into her sitting area with delicate china cups and freshly brewed Earl Grey tea. Martha asked about my work, my apartment, and my social life with genuine interest. She had a gift for making conversation feel effortless and meaningful. "I'm so glad you came to visit," she said, patting my hand affectionately. "I don't see nearly enough of you children these days." "I love spending time with you, Grandma. You know you're my favorite." She laughed, her eyes twinkling. "Well, don't tell Ashley and Tyler that. Though between you and me, you've always been the most thoughtful of my grandchildren." We chatted about her book club, her weekly bridge games, and her ongoing battle with the facility's kitchen staff over their uninspired meal planning. Martha was sharp as ever, with opinions on everything from local politics to celebrity gossip. Then almost casually, she mentioned something that made my blood run cold. "It's such a shame about your parents' decision regarding the lake house inheritance," she said, sipping her tea. "I understand their reasoning, but it still feels unfair to me." I kept my expression neutral, though my heart started racing. "Oh, what decision was that?" Martha looked surprised. "Well, I assumed you knew. Your father said you had all discussed it as a family." I took a careful sip of tea, buying time to think. "Remind me of the details. There's been so much family stuff happening lately." "Well, as you know, your grandfather's lake house in Brainerd was always meant to be divided equally among all 3 grandchildren when I pass away. It's worth quite a bit now, probably close to $300,000 with the market the way it is." I nodded, though I had never been told any specifics about inheritance plans. Martha continued. "But Tyler and Ashley came to me about 6 months ago with concerns. They said you had mentioned to them that you wouldn't want to be tied down by family property, that you preferred your independence. They worried you might sell your share immediately, which would complicate things for them." My chest tightened. I had never said anything remotely close to that to anyone. They suggested that perhaps the house should go to just the 2 of them, since they would actually use it for family gatherings and keep it in the family long term. Your parents supported this idea, saying it made practical sense given your lifestyle. I fought to keep my voice steady. "And what did you think about that suggestion?" Martha sighed deeply. "Honestly, I was troubled by it. Even if you did plan to sell eventually, that would be your right as an equal heir. But David was quite persuasive about it being what you would prefer. He said you had specifically told him you didn't want the responsibility of shared property ownership. Another complete fabrication. I had never discussed lake house inheritance with my father or anyone else in the family." "So the will has been changed?" I asked gently. "Yes, about 4 months ago. Tyler and Ashley will inherit the lake house jointly, and you'll receive an equivalent cash amount from other assets. Though between you and me, the cash equivalent is probably undervalued compared to the property's true worth." I felt sick. My siblings and parents had systematically manipulated an elderly woman into changing her will based on complete lies about my preferences and statements I'd never made. They had stolen my inheritance while making it appear as if they were honoring my wishes. "Grandma, can I ask you something directly?" "Of course, dear." "Did I ever tell you or anyone else that I didn't want to inherit part of the lake house?" Martha looked confused and concerned. "Well, no, you never said anything to me directly, but your father was very clear that you had expressed these feelings to the family. And Tyler and Ashley told you I said I preferred independence over family property. Yes, they both confirmed what David had told me. They seemed genuinely concerned about honoring your wishes. I set down my teacup carefully, trying to control the rage building inside me. Grandma, I need you to know something important. I never said any of those things to anyone. I never told Dad I didn't want the lake house, and I never told Tyler and Ashley that I preferred independence over family property. They lied to you. Martha's face went pale. But why would they do such a thing? I'm still trying to figure that out myself. She sat quietly for several minutes processing this information. I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she reconsidered conversations and decisions from the past months. Oh my goodness, she finally whispered. They manipulated me. They manipulated an old woman into changing her will based on lies. I'm afraid so. Martha's hands shook slightly as she reached for her teacup. There's something else, isn't there? This isn't just about the lake house. I told her about the Christmas gift disparity, about the group text messages, excluding me, about the systematic pattern of financial and emotional exclusion I had discovered. Martha listened with growing horror and sadness. I've been such a fool, she said finally. I've let them convince me that you were distant and uninterested in family connections. But you're here visiting me on a Saturday afternoon, bringing my favorite cookies and spending hours listening to an old woman ramble about bridge games. You're the most attentive grandchild I have. I love spending time with you, Grandma. I always have. And they've used that against both of us, haven't they? They've created stories about you that justified excluding you, and they've used those stories to manipulate me into supporting their schemes. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. Martha stood up with more energy than I had seen from her in years. Well, this is going to stop right now. I'm calling my attorney Monday morning. That will can be changed back, and it will be. Grandma, I don't want you to feel pressured about your estate planning. That's your decision to make. My decision based on accurate information, not lies and manipulation, she said firmly. Those children have some explaining to do, and your parents have even more explaining to do. As I prepared to leave that afternoon, Martha hugged me tighter than usual. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry I let them fool me, and I'm sorry you've been dealing with this alone. Thank you for listening and for believing me. Oh, I believe you completely, and I suspect this is just the beginning of what we're going to discover about their little schemes. Driving home that evening, I felt a mixture of vindication and fresh outrage. The Christmas gifts were not an isolated incident of thoughtlessness. My family was systematically working to exclude me from major financial decisions and family assets. They were lying about my words and preferences to justify their actions, and they were manipulating elderly relatives to support their schemes. But now I had an ally in Martha, and I had concrete evidence of inheritance fraud. The scope of their betrayal was becoming clearer, but I suspected there was still more to uncover. Christmas was 4 months away, and I was beginning to formulate a comprehensive response plan that would address not just the holiday gift inequity, but the entire pattern of exclusion and manipulation. They wanted to play financial games with family relationships. They were about to discover that they had seriously underestimated their opponent. September arrived with the crisp promise of autumn, and with it, Ashley's 27th birthday celebration. The family had planned dinner at Mancini's Char House, an upscale steakhouse in downtown St. Paul that Ashley had been wanting to try. I agreed to attend, though I approached the evening as another fact-gathering opportunity rather than a genuine celebration. The restaurant was elegant and dimly lit with burgundy leather booths and the kind of atmosphere that whispered expensive. We were seated at a round table that should have encouraged equal conversation, but I noticed immediately how the seating arrangement seemed designed to minimize my participation. Ashley sat between Mom and Tyler with Dad across from her, leaving me positioned slightly outside their natural conversational triangle. Dinner proceeded with the usual family dynamics. Ashley dominated the conversation with stories about her job at the marketing firm, her recent weekend trip to Chicago, and her ongoing saga with her unreliable roommate. Tyler contributed funny anecdotes about difficult customers at the bank, while Mom and Dad asked engaged follow-up questions and offered supportive commentary. I participated when directly addressed, but mainly observed how effortlessly they connected with each other while treating me as a pleasant but peripheral presence. About halfway through our entrees, Ashley excused herself to use the restroom, and Mom followed shortly after. This was not unusual. They often went to the bathroom together during family dinners, claiming they wanted to touch up their makeup or have a private moment. I waited a few minutes, then excused myself as well, claiming I needed to wash my hands. The ladies' room was tucked away down a narrow hallway lined with vintage photographs of the Twin Cities. As I approached the door, I could hear Ashley and Mom's voices coming from inside. They were speaking in low tones, but the acoustics of the bathroom made their words clearly audible. I stopped just outside the door, hidden by the hallway's shadows. After Christmas this year, we should probably start doing holidays without her, I heard Ashley say. I've been thinking the same thing, Mom replied. She just brings down the energy and Tyler agrees completely. Exactly. It's like having a stranger at family gatherings. She never really participates. She never seems genuinely happy to be there, and honestly, it's exhausting trying to include someone who doesn't want to be included. We can always claim we're scaling back celebrations, Mom suggested. Make it sound like a general family decision rather than specifically about her. That's perfect. We'll do one last Christmas with her this year, keep it simple so she can't complain about gift inequality or whatever, and then transition to smaller gatherings going forward. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. They were planning to phase me out of family celebrations entirely, and they were already crafting the narrative that would make it seem like my fault. I ducked into a nearby supply closet until I heard them return to the dining room, then followed a few minutes later. For the rest of dinner, I watched my family with new eyes, noting how they seemed to be performing inclusion rather than genuinely including me. When Dad asked about my work projects, his questions felt perfunctory rather than interested. When I mentioned thinking about redecorating my apartment, no one offered to help or asked to see pictures of my ideas. They maintained the appearance of family warmth while keeping me at emotional arm's length. The following week, I decided to test my suspicions by calling Tyler directly. I rarely contacted my siblings outside of family gatherings, so this required some strategic thinking. Hey Tyler, it's Bridget. I hope I'm not bothering you. Oh hey, no, not at all. What's up? I had prepared my approach carefully. I was actually calling to get some advice about Christmas planning. I know it's still early, but I like to be organized and I wanted to get your thoughts on gift giving this year. There was a pause on the line. What kind of advice? Well, I was wondering about the family's general approach to gifts this year. Should I be thinking big or small, practical or personal? I just want to make sure I'm on the same page as everyone else. Honestly, Bridget, I wouldn't worry too much about Christmas gifts this year. I think everyone's kind of scaling back, the economy and everything. This was fascinating. Tyler was suggesting I scale back my gift giving while I knew from the group text messages that the family was planning their most elaborate gift exchange ever. They were actively trying to minimize my participation while maximizing their own. That's good to know, I said casually. So you think something simple and modest would be appropriate? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really about being together as a family, right? The gifts are just a nice bonus. After hanging up, I felt a cold clarity settle over me. They were setting me up for failure. If I spent generously on Christmas gifts, despite Tyler's advice to scale back, they would use it as evidence that I was trying to show off or make others look bad. If I followed his advice and gave modest gifts, they would use it as proof that I didn't care about the family. It was a perfect trap designed to justify their planned exclusion regardless of how I behaved. 2 weeks later, I visited Mom for coffee at her house. This had once been a pleasant weekly tradition, but I now approached it as a reconnaissance mission. We sat in her sunny kitchen, surrounded by the cheerful yellow walls and herb garden she had cultivated for years. Mom served coffee in her favorite ceramic mugs and offered homemade banana bread, playing the role of loving mother with practiced ease. "How are things going with work, sweetie?" she asked, settling into the chair across from me. Really well, thanks. We just landed a major client, so things are busy but exciting. That's wonderful. You've always been so driven and successful. The compliment felt hollow, especially knowing what I had discovered about their private conversations regarding my supposed arrogance and superiority complex. As we chatted about neutral topics, Mom casually mentioned that the family might simplify Christmas celebrations going forward. What do you mean by simplify? I asked. Oh, you know how elaborate holidays can become, she said with a dismissive wave. All the pressure to find perfect gifts, the stress of coordinating everyone's schedules, the expense of big dinners. Sometimes I think smaller, more intimate celebrations might be more meaningful. Smaller in what way? Mom's answer was carefully vague. Just less complicated, I suppose. Some people just expect too much from family gatherings, and that can create unnecessary stress for everyone. I felt the familiar sting of their coded language. By some people, she clearly meant me. They were already laying the groundwork for my exclusion while making it sound like a general family philosophy rather than a targeted campaign. I think family gatherings should definitely be stress-free, I agreed pleasantly. Exactly, I knew you would understand. That evening, I called Jessica in Portland to process what I had learned. They're planning to phase you out completely, she said after I finished recounting the restaurant bathroom conversation and subsequent interactions. This isn't just about Christmas gifts or inheritance. They're systematically removing you from the family. That's what it feels like. And they're creating a narrative where it's your fault, where you're the one who doesn't want to participate or doesn't appreciate what they do for you. Right. If I complain about the treatment, I'm ungrateful. If I don't complain, I don't care. If I give expensive gifts, I'm showing off. If I give modest gifts, I don't value the family. There's no way to win. Jessica was quiet for a moment. You know what I think you should do? What? I think you should give them exactly what they've given you. Not more, not less. Exactly the same level of consideration and financial investment they've shown you. You mean the $99? I mean everything. The same level of thought, the same level of effort, the same level of inclusion in your life that they've given you in theirs. As I considered Jessica's suggestion, I realized that my Christmas response was evolving into something larger. This was not just about gift-giving equality. This was about establishing a new dynamic where I treated my family members exactly as they had demonstrated they wanted to be treated. If they wanted to exclude me from family financial planning, I would exclude them from mine. If they wanted to minimize their investment in our relationships, I would mirror that minimization. If they wanted to create distance while maintaining the appearance of family connection, I would show them what actual distance looked like. Christmas was 3 months away, and I was beginning to see it not as an end goal, but as the opening move in a much larger game. They had been playing by hidden rules for years, systematically diminishing my place in the family while acting loving to my face. It was time for me to start playing by their rules, applied with perfect equity. They were about to discover what it felt like to be on the receiving end of their own family philosophy. October and November passed in a blur of careful planning and strategic shopping. I had decided to approach my Christmas response with the same meticulous attention to detail that my family had applied to their systematic exclusion of me. If they could coordinate their efforts to minimize my gifts while maximizing their own, I could certainly coordinate a response that would mirror their energy exactly. I started by calculating the precise mathematics of their Christmas philosophy. $99 distributed among 4 people meant roughly $25 per person, but I decided to vary the amount slightly to make the gift selection more interesting. I would spend exactly $99 total, not a penny, more or less. For Dad, I selected a $15 gas station gift card. Gas stations were practical and gift cards were impersonal in exactly the way their gifts to me had been. I chose a card from the station nearest their house with no special packaging or presentation. Mom would receive a $12 candle from the drugstore. Not coincidentally, it was the exact same brand and scent that Susan had given me the previous Christmas. If she thought $12 was an appropriate amount to spend on a family member's gift, she should be delighted to receive the same consideration. Ashley's gift required more creative thinking. I found a $26 generic bath set at a discount retailer, basic soap lotion and body wash in uninspiring packaging. The kind of gift you buy when you need to give someone something, but have put no thought into what they might actually want. Tyler would receive $21 worth of fast food gift cards bundled together with a rubber band. I selected cards from 3 different chains in small denominations, creating a collection that looked exactly like what it was: minimal effort and minimal expense. The remaining $5 went toward a pack of generic Christmas cards that I planned to give to everyone to share, because nothing says thoughtful gift giving like asking the recipients to distribute their own greeting cards. I wrapped each gift in newspaper rather than wrapping paper. This was not to be cruel, but to match the level of presentation that my gifts typically received: functional but uninspired, clearly done at the last minute, with whatever materials were handy. As I prepared these gifts, I felt no guilt or sadness. Instead, I felt a strange sense of liberation. For years, I had been operating under the assumption that family gift giving should be generous and thoughtful, that holidays were opportunities to show love through careful selection and meaningful presents. I had been playing by rules that my family had abandoned long ago. Now I was finally playing by their actual rules instead of my imagined ones. 2 weeks before Christmas, I received an unexpected piece of information that confirmed my suspicions about their larger plans. Tyler's girlfriend Madison called me, which was unusual since we barely knew each other beyond polite small talk at family gatherings. "Hi Bridget, this is Madison, Tyler's girlfriend. I hope you don't mind me calling." "Of course not. How can I help you?" Madison sounded nervous and hesitant. "I wanted to talk to you about something, but I'm not sure how to bring it up." "Just say whatever's on your mind." "It's about Christmas and about something Tyler mentioned to me. I feel weird about it, and I thought you should know." My pulse quickened. "What did he say?" "He was talking about how the family is planning some kind of announcement at Christmas dinner. Something about restructuring family gatherings going forward. He said it would help make holidays more intimate and meaningful." "Did he give you any specifics about this announcement?" Madison hesitated. "He said that after the gift exchange, your parents were going to explain that they wanted to make holidays smaller and more manageable. Something about focusing on immediate family members who really valued being together." I felt the familiar cold anger settling in my chest. "And did Tyler explain what he meant by immediate family members?" "Not directly, but from the way he was talking, it sounded like they were planning to exclude you from future celebrations. He made it sound like it was a mutual decision, like you had expressed that you weren't that interested in family gatherings anyway." Another complete fabrication. I had never expressed disinterest in family gatherings to anyone. "Madison, can I ask why you're telling me this?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because it doesn't match what I've observed about you. At the few family dinners I've attended, you've seemed perfectly pleasant and engaged. And honestly, the whole thing feels really mean-spirited to me, like they're planning to ambush you. I appreciate you letting me know." Tyler made me promise not to say anything, but it's been bothering me for weeks. If someone was planning to exclude me from family gatherings, I would want to know ahead of time. After hanging up with Madison, I realized that Christmas dinner was intended to be the culmination of their exclusion campaign. They expected me to react badly to receiving minimal gifts, which would give them the perfect opening to announce their decision to scale back family celebrations. They would frame my disappointment as evidence that I was materialistic and ungrateful, justifying their choice to exclude me going forward. It was a perfectly orchestrated setup designed to make me the villain in my own exclusion story. But now I knew their plan, which meant I could prepare a counter-strategy. I spent the following week crafting my Christmas dinner speech. I would let them execute their gift exchange exactly as planned. I would open my minimal presents with gracious appreciation, denying them the negative reaction they were counting on. Then when Dad started to make his prepared announcement about restructuring family gatherings, I would ask for the floor. And I would tell them exactly what I had learned about their systematic campaign of exclusion with documentation. I printed copies of the group text screenshots, photos of the Christmas receipt folder, and a timeline of inheritance manipulation. I organized everything into neat folders, one for each family member, with a complete record of their coordinated efforts to minimize my place in the family. I also prepared a brief speech that would address their behavior without becoming emotional or defensive. I would present the facts calmly and systematically, letting the evidence speak for itself. Most importantly, I would announce my new approach to family relationships going forward. I would treat each family member exactly as they had treated me. Same level of financial investment, same level of emotional energy, same level of inclusion in my life that they had provided in theirs. Perfect equity. Christmas Eve night. I laid out my outfit for the next day and arranged the newspaper-wrapped gifts in a neat pile by my front door. I felt calm and focused like an athlete before a big competition. I had prepared for this moment for months, gathering evidence and developing strategy. Tomorrow my family would discover that their years of systematic exclusion had not gone unnoticed or undocumented. They would learn that treating someone as less valuable than other family members was a choice that came with consequences. And they would discover that I could play their game better than they had ever imagined. The little girl who used to accept whatever scraps of affection and attention they offered had grown into a woman who understood her own worth. If they wanted to treat me as an outsider, I was prepared to show them what being an actual outsider looked like. Tomorrow was Christmas morning, and I had never been more ready for a family gathering in my life. Christmas morning arrived gray and cold with a light dusting of snow covering the suburban Minneapolis landscape. I loaded my newspaper-wrapped gifts into my car and drove the familiar route to my parents' house, feeling surprisingly calm for someone about to execute the most confrontational plan of my adult life. The house looked festive and welcoming from the outside, with white lights outlining the roofline and my mother's traditional wreath hanging on the front door. Cars in the driveway indicated that extended family members had already arrived, Grandma Martha's assisted living transport van, Uncle Jake's pickup truck, and my cousin Emma's little Honda. I had not expected extended family to be present for what I assumed would be a nuclear family gathering. This changed my plans slightly, but not my resolve. If anything, having witnesses to my family's manipulation schemes would make the revelation more powerful. I knocked and entered through the front door, calling out holiday greetings as I hung my coat in the hall closet. The house smelled like cinnamon and coffee, with underlying notes of the ham that was presumably roasting in the oven for our traditional Christmas dinner. "Bridget," Mom called from the kitchen. Perfect timing, we were just getting ready to start the gift exchange. I carried my pile of newspaper-wrapped presents into the living room, where everyone had gathered around the Christmas tree. The tree was spectacular, as always covered in ornaments collected over decades of family celebrations, and surrounded by an impressive display of professionally wrapped gifts. Grandma Martha was settled in Dad's leather recliner, looking elegant in her Christmas cardigan. Uncle Jake and Cousin Emma occupied the couch, while Tyler sat on the floor near the tree with Madison beside him. Ashley had claimed the other comfortable chair, leaving me a spot on the ottoman near the fireplace. The gift exchange began with its usual chaos of wrapping paper and excited exclamations. I watched Tyler unwrap a brand new laptop, his face lighting up with genuine surprise and gratitude. Ashley squealed with delight over a pair of designer boots she had apparently been wanting for months. Mom and Dad exchanged matching luxury watches, while the extended family members received thoughtful, moderately expensive gifts appropriate to their relationships with my parents. When it came time for my gifts to be opened, I felt the room's energy shift slightly. Everyone smiled and expressed appropriate gratitude, but their faces could not quite hide their confusion and disappointment. Dad held the $15 gas station gift card uncertainly, as if unsure what he was supposed to do with it. "This is practical. Thank you, sweetheart." Mom examined the $12 drugstore candle with barely concealed bewilderment. "This is the same scent I bought for you last year. That's sweet." Ashley opened the generic bath set without enthusiasm, while Tyler looked genuinely puzzled by the collection of small denomination, fast food gift cards bundled with a rubber band. The pack of Christmas cards I distributed as everyone's shared gift was met with polite confusion. "These are for all of us to share," I explained helpfully. "I thought it would be nice if everyone had cards to give to their friends." I opened my own gifts with gracious appreciation, maintaining perfect composure despite receiving exactly what I had expected, minimal impersonal items that clearly represented last-minute shopping. A generic scarf from Ashley, a small candle from Tyler, and a picture frame from my parents that still had the stock photo in it. As the gift opening concluded and people began gathering wrapping paper, I noticed Dad clearing his throat purposefully. This was it. The announcement Madison had warned me about was coming. Before we head to the kitchen for breakfast, Dad began, "Mom and I wanted to talk with everyone about our holiday plans going forward." But I stood up before he could continue. "Actually, before anyone makes any announcements, I have something I would like to share with the family." Dad looked startled but nodded for me to proceed. I walked to my purse and pulled out the folders I had prepared, one for each immediate family member. Over the past several months, I've been learning some interesting things about family dynamics and decision-making processes. I thought everyone should have access to the same information I've discovered. I handed Dad, Mom, Ashley, and Tyler each a folder, while the extended family members watched with growing curiosity. These folders contain documentation of some family conversations and financial decisions that I think will interest everyone. Ashley opened her folder first, and I watched her face go completely white as she saw the screenshots of group text messages. "Why don't you read some of those messages aloud, Ashley?" I suggested pleasantly. "I think Grandma Martha and Uncle Jake would be particularly interested in the discussions about Christmas gift budgets and family inheritance planning." Tyler was frantically flipping through his folder, finding printed copies of conversations he thought were private. "Where did you get these?" "From your laptop when you stayed at my apartment in July. You left it open, and I was curious about family planning conversations I had not been invited to join." Mom was staring at photos of the Christmas receipt folder Dad thought he had hidden in his office. "These are private family financial records." Dad said, his voice tight with anger and embarrassment. "Yes, they are. Records showing that the family spent over $4,700 on Christmas gifts last year, with exactly $99 allocated for me, which explains why I spent exactly $99 on all of you combined this year." The room was completely silent except for the sound of pages turning as extended family members tried to understand what was happening. Grandma Martha spoke first. "David, is this true? Did you spend less than $100 on Bridget's Christmas while spending thousands on Ashley and Tyler?" "It's more complicated than that." Dad started, but Martha cut him off. "No, it is not complicated. Either you treat your children equally or you don't. These numbers suggest you don't." Uncle Jake was reading over Martha's shoulder, his expression growing darker by the moment. "This group text conversation is disgusting. You've been systematically excluding Bridget from family planning and then lying about her responses and preferences. You told me she didn't want to inherit the lake house," Martha added, her voice shaking with anger. "You said she had specifically told you she preferred independence over family property. According to these messages, you never discussed inheritance with her at all." Ashley finally found her voice. "You went through Tyler's private messages. That's a violation of privacy." "Yes, it is," I agreed. Just like systematically excluding someone from family financial planning is a violation of family trust, just like lying to an elderly relative about someone's preferences to manipulate inheritance decisions is a violation of basic human decency. Madison, who had been quietly reading over Tyler's shoulder, suddenly stood up. "Tyler, this is horrible. These messages make it sound like you actively dislike your sister. Why would you say she's ungrateful and thinks she's better than everyone else?" "Madison, this is family business," Tyler said defensively. "No," Madison replied firmly. "This is bullying behavior, and I will not be part of a family that treats people this way." She picked up her purse and jacket. "I'll find my own way home." She walked out the front door, leaving Tyler looking stunned and embarrassed. Cousin Emma had taken one of the folders and was reading with obvious shock. "These group text conversations span 2 years. You've been planning family events, vacations, and celebrations while specifically discussing whether to include Bridget or not. And usually deciding not to include her," Uncle Jake added grimly. I remained standing calmly in the center of the room, watching my nuclear family squirm under the scrutiny of relatives who were seeing their behavior clearly for the first time. "The most interesting part," I continued, "is that you were planning to announce today that you wanted to scale back family holiday celebrations to make them more intimate and meaningful. Madison warned me that this was code for excluding me from future gatherings while making it sound like a mutual family decision." Dad's face was red with embarrassment and anger. "You've taken private conversations out of context. Families have complicated dynamics, and sometimes difficult decisions have to be made. What's complicated about spending the same amount of money on each of your children at Christmas?" Grandma Martha demanded. "What's difficult about including all your children in family planning conversations?" "Bridget has always been different," Mom said defensively. "She's more independent, more financially successful. We thought she didn't need the same level of support as Ashley and Tyler." "So you punished her for being responsible and self-sufficient?" Uncle Jake asked incredulously. The room erupted in overlapping conversations as extended family members expressed shock and disapproval, while my immediate family attempted various forms of damage control and justification. Through it all, I remained calm and centered. I had spent months preparing for this moment, and it was unfolding exactly as I had hoped. The truth was finally visible to everyone, documented and undeniable. After several minutes of chaos, I raised my hand for attention. "I want everyone to know that I don't expect apologies or explanations today. What I wanted was for the truth to be visible to the whole family so that future decisions could be made with full information rather than manufactured narratives about my preferences and attitudes." "What do you want from us?" Ashley asked, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I want to be treated exactly the way you've been treating me," I replied simply. "Same level of financial investment in our relationships, same level of emotional energy, same level of inclusion in my life that you've provided in yours. Perfect equality." "What does that mean, practically?" Tyler asked nervously. "It means I'll spend $99 on your combined Christmas gifts each year, just like you did for me. It means I'll exclude you from my major life planning conversations, just like you excluded me from yours. It means I'll make decisions about family gatherings and events based on what's convenient for me, just like you've been doing." The room was completely quiet now, everyone processing what I was saying. "And it means," I concluded, "that if you want to rebuild these relationships into something healthier and more equitable, you'll need to demonstrate through your actions that you value me as much as you value each other. Words won't be sufficient anymore. Only consistent equal treatment over time will convince me to invest in this family the way I used to." The immediate aftermath of my Christmas revelation was exactly the chaos I had expected. Ashley burst into tears. Tyler sat in stunned silence, and my parents alternated between defensive anger and damage control mode. The extended family members looked like they had witnessed a car accident, shocked and unsure how to respond. Grandma Martha was the first to take decisive action. She stood up from the recliner with more energy than I had seen from her in years. "David Susan, I am deeply ashamed of your behavior toward Bridget. This systematic exclusion and manipulation is not the family I raised you to create." Dad tried to interrupt, but Martha held up her hand firmly. "I am not finished. You lied to me about Bridget's preferences regarding the lake house inheritance. You manipulated an elderly woman into changing her will based on complete fabrications. That stops today." "Mom, there were reasons for those decisions," Dad began. "There are no acceptable reasons for lying to your mother about your daughter's words and wishes," Martha replied sharply. "I will be calling my attorney Monday morning to restore the original will. The lake house inheritance will be split equally among all 3 grandchildren, as it should have been from the beginning." Uncle Jake stood up and moved toward me. "Bridget, I want you to know that you are welcome at our family celebrations any time. What I've seen here today is not acceptable, and I won't pretend otherwise." Cousin Emma nodded in agreement. "This is really disturbing. I had no idea this was happening." Ashley was sobbing now, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks. "Bridget, I'm sorry. We never meant for it to be this hurtful." "But you did mean for it to be exclusionary," I replied calmly. "You specifically planned to minimize my gifts, exclude me from family planning, manipulate inheritance decisions, and phase me out of family gatherings. The hurt was inevitable once I discovered what you were doing." Tyler finally found his voice. "We thought you didn't care that much about family stuff. You never seemed that upset about anything." "Because I trusted you. I believed that any inequality or exclusion was accidental oversight rather than deliberate choice. I gave you the benefit of the doubt for years while you systematically undermined my place in this family. Mom tried a different approach. Sweetheart, we raised you to be independent and strong. We were proud of how well you were doing on your own. So you decided to punish me for meeting your expectations?" I asked. "That's your explanation for treating me as less valuable than my siblings?" "We never thought of it as punishment," Dad said weakly. "Then what did you think of it as? Because from my perspective, being excluded from family financial planning, having my inheritance manipulated through lies, and receiving minimal holiday gifts while watching my siblings receive thousands of dollars worth of presents feels exactly like punishment." The conversation continued for another hour with various family members attempting explanations, justifications, and apologies. I listened to everything but committed to nothing. I had said what I came to say, and I had accomplished what I set out to accomplish, making their behavior visible and undeniable. Finally, I gathered my things to leave. "I'm going home now. Uncle Jake and Grandma Martha, thank you for listening and for believing me. I love you both." "We love you too, sweetheart," Martha replied, hugging me tightly. "This family owes you a tremendous apology, and more importantly, they owe you changed behavior." As I reached the front door, Ashley called out, "Bridget, wait, what can we do to fix this?" I turned back to look at my nuclear family, all of them looking shell-shocked and uncertain. "You can start by acknowledging what you've done without making excuses for it. You can stop lying to extended family members about my preferences and attitudes, and you can demonstrate through your actions consistently over time that you value me as much as you value each other." "And if we do that," Tyler asked, "then maybe we can rebuild these relationships into something healthier and more honest. But words won't be enough. Only sustained equal treatment will convince me to invest in this family the way I used to." 2 weeks later, I started receiving phone calls. Dad called first, offering what sounded like a rehearsed apology that focused more on my misunderstanding their intentions than on their actual behavior. I thanked him for calling and told him I would consider it a first step, but that I would need to see changed behavior over time before considering it meaningful. Mom called a few days later with a different approach, suggesting that we all attend family counseling together to work through our communication issues. I agreed to consider counseling if all 4 nuclear family members committed to honest participation, including acknowledgement of the systematic exclusion I had documented. Tyler was the first to make real progress. 3 weeks after Christmas, he asked to meet me for coffee. We sat in a neutral cafe downtown while he read from what was clearly a prepared statement. "I have been reviewing the evidence you presented on Christmas, and I need to acknowledge that our treatment of you was systematic, deliberate, and wrong. I participated in excluding you from family planning. I supported manipulating your inheritance, and I minimized your gifts while maximizing my own. None of that was accidental, and none of it was justified." He looked up from his paper. "I don't know why we did it exactly. Maybe because you seemed so put together and successful that we convinced ourselves you didn't need family support the way Ashley and I did. but that was our rationalization for treating you unfairly, and I'm sorry." "What are you hoping will happen going forward?" I asked. "I hope we can rebuild our relationship based on actual equality. I want to include you in family planning conversations, split holiday expenses equally, and stop making decisions about you without you." That sounds like a good start. Tyler became my first ally in the family reconstruction project. Over the following months, he consistently included me in planning conversations, treated me as an equal rather than an outsider, and called out exclusionary behavior when he witnessed it. Ashley took much longer to come around. She maintained for months that the family's behavior had been misunderstood rather than deliberately harmful. She attended a few family counseling sessions, but remained defensive and resistant to acknowledging the impact of her actions. Eventually, Ashley and I settled into a distant but polite relationship. She stopped actively undermining me, but she never genuinely apologized or worked to rebuild our sisterly connection. I accepted this as her choice and adjusted my expectations accordingly. My parents required the most sustained effort. Dad struggled to move beyond defensive justifications, while Mom kept trying to minimize the scope of what had happened. They attended family counseling sessions sporadically and made incremental progress toward treating me more equitably. The breakthrough came about 8 months after Christmas when Mom called me crying after a particularly honest counseling session. "I've been thinking about what the therapist said about empathy," she said. She asked me to imagine how I would feel if my parents and siblings had systematically excluded me from family planning for years while lying to relatives about my preferences, and I realized I would be devastated. "It was devastating," I confirmed. "I think we convinced ourselves that because you were successful and independent, you didn't need family love and inclusion the way Ashley and Tyler did. But that's not how family should work, is it?" "Yeah, Marit." "No, it's not. Can you forgive us? Can we try to rebuild this relationship? I can consider it if you're willing to demonstrate changed behavior consistently over time." Mom became my most dedicated family reconstruction partner. She worked hard to include me in family planning conversations, treated me equally in gift-giving and celebration planning, and advocated for my inclusion when Dad or Ashley reverted to old patterns. 1 year after the Christmas revelation, our family gathered again for the holidays. The dynamics were completely different. Gift-giving was equitable and thoughtful. Family planning conversations included all members. No one was excluded from financial discussions or inheritance planning. Ashley and I maintained polite distance, but she no longer actively undermined my family relationships. Tyler had become a genuine ally and friend. My parents were working hard to demonstrate consistent respect and inclusion. Most importantly, I had established boundaries that protected my emotional well-being while creating space for authentic family relationships to develop. The Lake House inheritance was restored to equal distribution among all grandchildren, as Grandma Martha had promised. She also revised her will to include specific language preventing future manipulation of inheritance decisions. 2 years later, Tyler married a wonderful woman named Sarah, who treated me as a genuine sister-in-law rather than a family peripheral. They asked me to participate meaningfully in their wedding planning and gave me an important role in their ceremony. My parents continued attending counseling and working on their communication patterns. Dad learned to acknowledge mistakes without becoming defensive, while Mom developed genuine empathy for the impact of their previous behavior. The most significant change was in my own approach to family relationships. I had learned to value myself enough to demand equal treatment, and I had discovered that setting boundaries created space for healthier connections. I no longer accepted crumbs of affection while watching others receive full meals of family love. I no longer rationalized exclusion as oversight or minimized deliberate mistreatment as misunderstanding. Instead, I learned that true family love must be demonstrated through consistent actions, not just declared through words. I learned that people will treat you exactly as poorly as you allow them to, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable poor treatment. Most importantly, I learned that my worth as a family member was not determined by others' willingness to recognize it. I had value regardless of whether my family acknowledged that value, and I deserved relationships built on mutual respect rather than conditional acceptance. The Christmas when I spent $99 on my entire family became a turning point that transformed our family dynamics permanently. It forced everyone to confront the reality of systematic exclusion and gave me the power to demand better treatment. Some relationships were rebuilt stronger than before, while others settled into polite distance. But all of them became more honest and authentic than they had been when hidden resentment and systematic inequality poisoned our interactions. Looking back, I realized that the most important gift I gave myself that Christmas was not the satisfaction of exposing my family's manipulation, but the courage to value myself enough to demand equal treatment. That courage changed everything, not just for the holidays, but for the rest of my life. The lesson I learned was this: family love must be demonstrated through actions, not just words. When people show you through their treatment that they value you less than others, believe them, but also know that you have the power to demand better. True family celebrates and includes you. Anything less isn't worth accepting. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable poor treatment, even from those closest to you. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for healthy relationships. And sometimes exposing the truth creates the opportunity for genuine healing and more authentic connections built on mutual respect rather than hidden manipulation. That Christmas taught me that I deserve to be valued, included, and treated with the same consideration given to other family members. Once I learned that lesson, I never again accepted anything less. I hope my story resonates with anyone who has ever felt excluded or undervalued by their family. You deserve equal treatment, honest communication, and genuine inclusion in the relationships that matter most. Don't settle for less, and don't let anyone convince you that their poor treatment of you is somehow your fault. Have you ever experienced systematic exclusion from family members who claim to love you? How did you handle the situation? And what did you learn about setting boundaries in difficult relationships? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of your own family dynamics, please consider liking this video to help others find it. Subscribe to my channel for more stories about overcoming family challenges and building healthier relationships. And please share this with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the power of setting boundaries and demanding equal treatment in family relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to value yourself enough to demand the love and respect you deserve, especially from those who claim to care about you most.